Next, we have Louise Brinton, who is going to talk to us about her pottery class. So, Louise, you're up.
Okay. So I'm going to be presenting, let's see if I can find my screen here. A one-day workshop on February 22nd on Ortiz Pottery. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this type of pottery, it's made in one small village in northern Chihuahua, Mexico, about 4 hours south of the Arizona border. The pottery was inspired by the Paquime culture that was prevalent there in the 13th to 15th century, but modern day Ortiz pottery is actually has its origins in a serendipitous meeting between these two men, Spencer McCallum, who was a US anthropologist, and Juan Quesada, who was a farmer and part-time potter in the village of Ortiz. And Juan was an admitted junk store addict who happened across these two pots in a junk store in Deming, New Mexico, and he was fascinated to find out where they came from. So he went on a quest to Mexico to find out where they were made and to meet the potter. And it took some effort to find the potter because there were no established roads into the village, but he eventually made it to Ortiz and met up with Juan and loved the pottery so much that he commissioned a couple of pieces that he brought back to the States. And interest grew in the pottery, and a number of other individuals in the village decided that they wanted to become potters because they found that they could make more money doing that than farming. And eventually this grew into a huge industry, and now in the village of 2,000 people, there are about 600 potters. So the pots are uniquely formed. They're not formed on a potter's wheel. They're actually formed by the coil method. And then they're painted with intricate designs, and they oftentimes use the hair of children for the brushes so that they can get a lot of detail. The pots are not fired in a kiln. They're actually fired in open fires using either dung or cottonwood bark. And despite how prevalent the pottery is in the village, their marketing plan is fairly basic. There are very few galleries, and the way that you find the pottery if you go to the village is to walk around, and you're oftentimes greeted by people in their trucks who will be very happy to show you the pots. Oftentimes you're invited into the homes where you will find people painting, usually at their kitchen tables, while simultaneously eating their lunches. And despite the less than optimal working conditions, the pots that are coming out of the village nowadays, in my opinion, are incredibly innovative, beautiful. And these are just a few examples of some recent pots that have been made in the village. And I should note that the prices of the pots are really quite affordable, particularly when you consider the amount of work that goes into them. So in my one-day workshop, which will be about 2 hours in length, I'm going to be talking about where the village is located and talking about some of the sites of interest in the surrounding areas, including the ruins of Paquime. It's also interesting that in this area of Mexico, there are a lot of Mennonite and Mormon communities, some of which are polygamous Mormon communities. I'll be talking about the history of the area prior to the 1970s and then what I call the post-Juan Quesada era. I will share with you how the pottery is made, familiarize you with some of the pots that have been made by the first generation potters, now by the second generation potters, who are the children of the first generation potters, and then some of the grandchildren are actually now making pots. For those of you who might be interested in buying some of these pots, I'll talk about how to identify the best pots and how to collect them. And then I'll be giving some logistical advice on how to visit the area, which I would highly recommend, and then conclude with some new developments in the village. So I've been going down to this part of Mexico for about 15 years, and it's just a real unique place to visit. Meeting the potters is a real thrill, and so I hope to engender some enthusiasm on the whole idea of Ortiz pottery through this workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise. The pottery is beautiful, and the history that you've given us is very intriguing. So I'm excited about this course. Thank you for teaching for us.